Okay, site orientation. Obviously, you want some place that has plenty of ventilation because that's how you cool the house. You want pollination, again, for your tomatoes and peppers. In Oklahoma, if we had a preferred way to do it, we'd run them north and south. That's why we get a little better light distribution. We have enough light here, though, guys, that you can run them any direction and you can be successful, all right? When you get farther north, most of the growers like to run them east and west. If you are a little bit cramped for space, you need more ventilation, you might want to think about running the houses east and west, and just so the south wind will blow through them easier if you have limited flow. Again, if you've got them on top of a hill or out in an exposed field, it shouldn't matter. Not in Oklahoma, at least where we're out here further west, okay? But when you get around some wind breaks, shelter belts, you can have some issues with wind flow. But I like this direction for the light. Even distribution of light from morning to evening when you run your rows parallel with the direction of the house. Okay, and then when you look in your site, you want to try to get rid of all your perennial weeds. That means you might have to use some herbicide. Johnson grass, Bermuda grass, you're better off dealing with that ahead of time. If you want to be certified organic, you're just going to have to wait 3 years. Otherwise, figure out some other way to do it. There are some ways, but the idea is to take care of the problems to start with and not have to deal with them. Enjoy growing and not fighting weeds. Okay, also a pad. If it's a permanent structure, I like to put mine on a little bit of a rise so the water goes around the structure and not through it. I've seen too many houses that after rain, the water just comes right down the rows, right down the aisles, and you're wading in mud. It's ridiculous. Now, with a movable structure, you might not have the option for that, and do they have to be level? I used to be a big stickler on this. As long as it's uniform, it can be sloped a little bit, but it needs to be uniformly sloped. One side doesn't need to be sloped more than the other, otherwise your structure's not going to go together square. It's going to look like somebody has got a severe alcohol problem, when you drive by it. All right, now the perimeter layout, you can take shortcuts, but if you don't know what you're doing, and especially if you're building a permanent house, you're going to have a skewed structure. And so I like to do it. I like to just make sure, I tell you how to do it professionally. If you want to skip steps, that's your business. But if you do it, it's guaranteed to be straight and it's guaranteed to be square. And it's going to be level. Okay, ground post installation. You want some kind of a cap, something to absorb the energy, a driver that you can put in those posts, pound them down. You can put them on the inside or outside of that line depending on what the instructions say. I usually go outside the line. That way it's a true, like a 14-foot inside to inside. But it just depends. It's not going to make any difference for most of these homemade structures or that you're building yourself. Use a template to keep them uniformly spaced, your ground posts, without having to use a ruler or a measuring tape. Leon showed me how to use this little driver extension. You just stand up and pound that baby. If this stuff gets old after you bend over all day pounding using a sledgehammer, if you let the post do it. Here's another extension with a ground post driver or a T-post driver, and then Leon's got his little hydraulic job there. Now, if you're getting in the business of doing this professionally, that's what you want to use right there. Okay, sometimes you can't drive posts in rocky ground, so go ahead and auger them out. You can use the tractor or a handheld one. This is one thing you can do. You can either drive to hold it in the concrete. You can put a bolt through that, or you can kink the end of the pipe to where it doesn't slide out of the concrete easily. Another tip, if you'll take that post and drive it down in the hole, drive it in the ground 3 or 4 inches where it stands up on its own, you can put the level on it. That way when you put your concrete around there, you don't have to hold it while you're doing it. I really like that. When I'm building my end wall, I take a hoop and stick it up, especially if I'm making if they're custom-made structural supports, doorpost, just to make sure that they come together. Okay, I put my hoop in place, then I put my post up there, and then I mark on them where I need to cut them, and I usually will use a level to make sure that they're straight, they're plumb, and then of course do what you have to keep them straight if it's windy. This is a simple way to do it. We just notch them so that the hoop will set right in that notch, and we use a lag bolt to attach it. Here's another way to do it. Take your post. In this particular case, it's steel. We've just welded a saddle on that, and then we've attached the purlin all in one little deal there with one bolt. Pretty slick. Here's another one that's a little angle that's welded onto the upright, the post, and the tech screws hold the end hoop together. Okay, as far as your cross members, you need those to provide you a surface area to attach your panel or your plastic. I like the angles and tech screws. You can use the little saddle there for your 2x4s. Both of them work great. That will sure stiffen up the end wall. When you're putting your hoops together, go ahead and these multiple hoops, put them on a level surface. Otherwise, these things are going to be corkscrewed when you set them up. They need to be straight. You can use a sleeve to join the pieces together in this particular case, or they'll just go, if it's swage pipe, the male and the female end. Your ground posts, some of them will come with, this is a farm tech structure, will come with the holes already in it, so they match the holes in the hoop. If they're out of line, just take you a wrench and line them up. If you're in concrete, you can't turn them, can you? So you just drill you another hole and get on with it. One way to attach the hoop to the ground post, I always draw a piece of, take a Marks-a-Lot or a Sharpie, and I know exactly what level to put my hoop. And I take, if I want to put my hoop board together, I'll just do use one bolt to put it all together. And just use a clamp like that to hold everything in place. That's just one option. If you're using these saddles, pipe hangers, that works great also. You wouldn't necessarily need these tech screws for the wood, but you get the concept. And you put a tech screw in the saddle to hold it to the hoop, or to the ground post in this case. On the end is easy, just wood screws, in this particular case with the wood columns, and then you can see how it butts up there on the bottom right. Okay, all kinds of techniques, materials you can use to attach your timber together, whether it be a baseboard, a hip board, your purlins, the swage pipe, one down the middle is the absolute minimum. You've got to have one. This particular house has 3, which the 2 on the side are really kind of a hip board, except they're pipe. This is a El Cheapo way of doing it. Not the best. It's not near as strong. Saddles are expensive, very strong. This is definitely the quickest way to do it. Okay. Hip boards, again, how you tie them together. This is just a piece of similar size lumber to tie them together, make it strong. Don't underdo that as far as length. Your hip board, if it's pipe, if you're using one of these Caterpillar Spanish tunnels, you want to put it on the inside so it doesn't, when the plastic is closed up, it's not going to catch water. The one on the bottom left picture is on the outside. That would be more for a roll-up side. The square tubing on the outside. The other one is on the inside. It just depends on how you're going to function, how the sidewalls, ventilation is going to function on these houses. And then you can't put enough bracing on these things. Oh my, in Oklahoma. The more hoops you can tie together, the better off you are. Make sense? It just adds strength upon strength upon strength. I also like to tie, if I've got some, if I have columns in the ground, go ahead and put some extra bracing up there to your hoops. So tie as many as you can together. I think it really pays off in our weather. As far as ice and snow, we don't get a whole lot of that here, but that's one storm we had. Okay, how do you attach the polyfilm? You can use the wiggle wire base. This is on the hip board, and then there's a lath. I use both of them on the end hoop. I use the wiggle wire base on the ends. On the sides, I will usually use lath. This is another end attachment where I've just attached a header board there to the frame. That's another way of lapping it over and attaching it to the end of the house. Okay, we're laying out the film, right? We're getting ready to put it on. We just like to unroll it completely, the length of it, and then we're going to tie a little knot in it, or we're going to put a tennis ball in there, something that we can wrap that rope around, and then we're going to attach a little bottle to it, throw it over the top, right? That's just one way of doing it. We're going to do this every 12, 16 feet or so, if we have the help. And of course, we're going to do it on a calm day, right? And so get everybody in place, and throw it over. I like to do it this way. And then make sure all of your snags are covered up. I use duct tape. You can use Gorilla Tape. You file them down, cut them off, do whatever. You don't want anything to catch this poly. You'll rip it. Okay, we're going to throw it over the top, and we're going to first attach it. I like to attach my end walls. I attach one to the end wall, and then I go to the other side and stretch it vertically and attach it, and then I'll start on the sides. I can either start in the middle and go both ways, or I can start at one end and go to the other. You're probably going to, on a warm day, you're going to have to take one of the sections off, the wheel wire off one end to stretch it again if it's warm, because it will get a little loose. Especially if it's a permanent house with a roll-up wall where you have no rope over the top, you'll probably want to re-stretch it. Okay, this is what I really like on my sides. I can save a little money. I stretch that poly down, and I stick another piece of lath up against that first permanent piece, and that locks that sucker in place. Now, the only issue here, if you start drilling that too quick, you'll pop that open, it'll just break quicker than you can, God got the news. So I like to pre-drill those holes, little 4-foot sections of lath. I'll insert my screw into that. I'll stick it up there and it's ready to go. I don't have to hold it and try to put my screw in there, and just go right on and get it done. Okay, here's another way to attach poly to the end of these small houses. Just take you a golf ball or one of these fake golf balls, wrap the plastic around it, and take you some of that ball bungee and attach it to hooks on your end wall. That is slick, slick, slick. That's the best thing I've ever come up with for a quick way to get that on and off of these caterpillar houses, small scale. Okay, caterpillar. We got different kind of rope material to hold that poly down. Nylon is what most people use. Very expensive. This won't break down in the sun as easy as some of that cheaper stuff. It's nylon though. Okay. Now there are other materials. This electrical pull tape. That's what some growers are using successfully. It's flat, it's woven, it's braided, it's super strong, and I have people swear by that. I haven't used it myself. On the right is the heavy-duty bedding twine. We recommended that for a while. You still can use it. It's a little abrasive to the plastic, so just keep that in mind. How do you hook the rope to the base of the house? You can use these eye bolts. You can weld a little loop on there, but put your rope through that and go all the way over to the other side. If you can have one continuous loop, or you can have, like this, in this situation, we have one section that we center it and we tie it off, throw both ends over the house. We have another section on the other side. We come up, we put a loop on one end, and then we draw the other string through it and tie a half hitch. That way we can suck that down real tight, and if it gets loose, we can undo it real quick and tie it back. That is the way to go. There's various permutations and alterations on this type of technique, but it all is similar, okay? It gives you the option of adjusting the tension on that plastic and keeping it from flopping and blowing away. Roll-up side curtain, but this is just your classic roll-up vent. I like to use a piece of poly. This is just poly pipe. I just cut sections out of it and wrap it around when I put my poly on to get it set, and I try it and make sure it rolls up uniformly, and then I'll come back and either put a set screw in it like it is that, or I'll put these aluminum clips on it, and then that doesn't come off. You've got to take a screwdriver to pry that baby off. There are the plastic ones that you can buy. It's just you need to take your time to make sure that they roll up straight, okay? And then if you roll them up, it ought to be, the water ought to shed on the outside. If you roll them up clockwise, well, it depends on where your roll-up handle is, but you can roll them up where it will tend to gather water, and it will gather algae and mold quicker. You want it to shed away from the plastic, not down into the reel. It works either way, just one of them is going to get dirtier than the other. Okay, hold it open with a rod. We use this for many years. This is a neat technique that one of our cooperators is using. And look at that, isn't that slick? You know, he uses it it goes back on itself. He runs that rod through there. He just pulls it out and then lets it go down and then sets it back where the elevation he wants. Pretty neat. I like that. That's the slickest roll-up handle that I've seen. When you vent these caterpillar tunnels, guys, boy, the water can catch in those. You need to put that plastic, wrap it back up underneath it on a heavy storm. If it's not designed properly and it's got too many creases in it, it's going to gather water. Okay, I use poly pipe. You can use strapping, something to hold these vents in place, keep them from flapping out in the wind. You can secure them on the ends in the wintertime if you want to do that. They're not going to go anywhere that way. You can put some type of a cover over that between the first two hoops on the inside, and your vent, your curtain goes on the outside, and that keeps that air from infiltrating, especially in the wintertime, as easy. I use windbreaks, weave them between the hoops, and then I secure them on the ends. I really like that. How high does that have to be? 3 feet, 4 feet is fine for the spring. You don't have to have them come all the way to the top of your hip board unless you want to try to keep the insects out. Okay, then you're welcome to do that. Okay, and this is another concept on that. It's an apron to keep that cold wind off of the plants in the spring. Okay, boom, I'm done. That was fast.